get your clothes and your passport and leave. They will escort you out. So they brought two Volkswagen little van. So we got, she said, leave all the equipment there. We cannot move no equipment at all. All the compressors, all our diving gear, the crane, the decompression chamber, Frenchie, that stays. We cannot take it out anyhow. We couldn't have took it out anyhow because we couldn't put it on the plane to begin with. Then finally, we left the airport and we stopped at Guadalajara. All right, we deplaned it. Of course, I worked several years in Mexico, been in and out of Mexico. I had a different passport and visa than the regular divers. That was their first trip to Mexico. I flew into New Orleans, and they held the 8 guys there for 10 days in Guadalajara. I didn't find out that till I got to Dallas. I mean to Houston, in Houston. And a guy from the company met me at the airport. And what I was kind of surprised, I was going, what, 3 weeks? And I was getting $200 a day plus my expense for doing consulting. He handed me an envelope with cash in it. And I was kind of surprised. It paid me off right there. And then I got the thing that something was really going on. I have never been encountered in that you know, I usually have to wait a week or two for my money when I work. But this guy's handed me an envelope full of money. So finally I took a flight to New Orleans and got settled down. And then finally I tried to get a hold of Velma. She was home, and her maid said no, she won't be back till for the next 2 or 3 days. So I waited 2 or 3 days, and I finally called Melba, and as soon as I heard her voice, I knew something was wrong. I said, what's the matter, Velma? She said, Frenchie, I was in a hotel room, they killed Michel, they put 5 bullets in him, stole $20,000 worth of cash, and stole his gold, gold Rolex that he was very proud of it. I says, oh my God, tell me. She says, I'm working with the Jefferson County Police Department and found out, and working with the Mexican Police Department and back and forth and try to get a few friends and my lawyer together and find out what really happened. I said, look, I'm going to be going to the Persian Gulf back on my regular job. I says, I appreciate if you let me know when I get back, when I see what happened. And it was a year or so later, she was still living in the same house. She had married, and a guy owned a Ford dealership in Kenner. And she says, Frenchie, as we speak, nobody knows nothing.
How did you end up going to the Persian Gulf?
Ron Root called Mark in New Orleans and said, look, we're taking the LE Miner to the Persian Gulf. And which is what, almost 13,000 miles around trip from New Orleans to the Persian Gulf by sea.
Yeah.
It took them a couple of months to bring that barge in there. They had to top a couple of places. A geologist went up there and did some exploration or something, and they said, we discovered a pretty good sized pool of oil on the sea bottom. Yeah. So they went and drilled. So what they didn't know, after they drilled it, they drilled the well, and I mean, they didn't have to go far to drill oil. And then I guess they decided, well, we got oil here, we need to get it to the beach. So they say, well, you got to have pipeline. So I guess that's what they call brine and root. Want to know if because there was no lay barge nowhere in that European area. You know, they would have to build, the closer one would have probably been Germany shipyard, or in Holland, or Scandinavian shipyard, maybe France. They would have had to build a pipeline laying barge, and that would have took several months. The miner, brand new, she's only been commissioned a year, laying pipeline like hell off the shore, Louisiana coast, making history, a mile a day, and they decided, well, that'd be the shut down the Gulf of Mexico, and then, but in the process, Brown Root took a derrick barge and reconverted to a pipeline barge, since the LE miner was going into the Persian Gulf. Well, they thought maybe the miner was only going to go there for a year, right? Just do that job. It was a multi-million-dollar job, and then bring the barge back, right? No, it didn't work that way. So we went up there. The barge had been there a week, so me and Mark, we flew over there. We flew in Bahrain. As soon as we got through with that, I came back to the state. We started working back in the Gulf, and then that's when we started experience that we found out they discovered oil in 300 feet of water, you know. So then we started experimenting. Mark had the wheel started, you know, and Mark said, and then by that time, British Petroleum and Aramco, American Oil Company, they wanted some more marine work and derrick barge and pipeline in the Persian Gulf, because the Persian Gulf fixing to open up, you know. And Mark says, okay, Frenchie, you get your crew, you take care of the Persian Gulf. Yeah, you go ahead and take care of the Persian Gulf, which I did. I got my crew, and of course, as one year, they got more work, and I kept staying, you know. I kept staying in the Persian Gulf. I spent 12 years there before I got out of there. And then I took a break, 66, the North Sea opened up. We went and did a job in the North Sea. The Conoco had drilled exploration well on a platform, but it was dry hole. They didn't get anything.
They spent how many millions there that it was dry?
So finally, they wanted to move the structure to another location. That was a dry hole, as they say in Oilfield. But they wanted to move, you know, they didn't want to build another structure. I mean, it's a pretty good sized platform. And that was I believe it was 130 feet of water. But they want to use that same structure, remove it there and bring it back to another location instead of, it took them months and months to build a structure. And I don't know if any European shipyard would have handled that kind of offshore structure. They hired us. We came to London in March. Got there at the Great Yarmouth Hotel. I got up next morning. I says, "Oh my God, there's the North Sea right there." I said, "Look at this." I went outside my cup of coffee, didn't see a soul. So I went back in and I asked the waiter, I says, "Did something happen overnight? Everybody left?" And he started left. They evacuate. He says, "No." He says, "Great Yarmouth is a summer resort. It goes back to the 13th century. It used to be a fishing village. June and July and August," he says, there'd be so many people here, you can't even walk down." I said, sure enough, we found out of it there. So we went to Conoco, and so we went offshore, miserable, 10, 15-foot seas, cold. So what they want us to do, we went inside the structure leg and cut, we had 8 jacket leg, and cut 10 feet below sea bottom. We went inside the pipe, diver there. We cut the pipe with the cutting torch. We cut one leg, then come out and go on the other leg and cut. And it took us about maybe a couple 2 or 3 weeks time. We got all eight leg jackets cut. And then they hooked up the big 500 ton crane on the jacket and pulled it. Of course, when we were cutting,
Is that crane connected to a boat?
Huh?
Is that crane on a boat?
No, on a barge.
Oh, on a barge.
Yeah, the Atlas. She can pick up, with a stick like this, she can pick up 750 tons. On a 20 degree, she can pick up five something. So after we cut all the pipe, all the jacket leg, well, they were using 2-inch cable for lifting cable. The thing weighed 300 and somewhat ton, the structure. So they put 4 cables, one on each end of the jacket leg. Then they took a strain off. Of course, when we were cutting, you don't get a clean cut. It's just a kind of a jagger. So within 8 legs that are jagged, they figure it's still holding a little bit. So we were reluctant, taking a strain like that, for us to go back into the pipe and check, make sure we got a clean cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked, hey, that's what one of the engineers for Conoco wanted to do. I said, wait, we need to discuss this among our divers here. We're all veterans here. And I told Neil, I said, Neil, what you, and Buddy Sweats and Joseph, I said, what do you think? He said, Frenchie, I wouldn't even go down there if they even leave the slack. He said, that's dangerous because it can go rock one way. With a strain, if one of us go down there and they take a little strain and that jacket decides to run loose and we get trapped in there where we had it. I says, okay, I'll tell them, no go. Keep pulling, keep rocking it back and forth. And I went to the engineer, I said, we talked it. No, I said, we don't want to take a chance. Here's what you do, go keep taking a little strain at a time, every 20, 30 ton pull, and just rock it just a little bit, and she might break loose. You know, as a well and you haven't got a clean well, sometimes you got to kind of rock it a little bit, then she'll break. And sure enough, 3 or 4 hours later, she finally broke loose. And they picked it up with the crane, secured it to the boards, got 2 seagoing tug, and took it about maybe 20 miles to another location, and then dropped it to sea bottom. We went and made an inspection, maybe sure it wasn't on any World War II wreckage or something, make sure they were sitting flat.
Yeah.
And then they started driving pilings inside it to anchor it into the sea bottom. And then we left, and then
So that just becomes a reef.
yeah. Then I returned back to New Orleans and stayed in New Orleans 2 weeks, and back to the Persian Gulf. Back to the Persian Gulf. Several years later, I met Al Warner in New Orleans. He had just came in New Orleans and formed a small company, came underwater service. So he had approached me, got my phone number, called me, and told him where to meet me at. So I told him, well, meet me in front of Taylor Diving and Salvage Company. They got box next door, which was our hangout, and I says, we can talk. He says, I got something I need to talk to you about. Of course, he knew that I been working for Taylor from the very beginning, right? And of course, the Mexican job, because I was already retired from the diving industry, but I was still doing consulting work if somebody needed me. So I went and spoke to Al, we had a few drinks, and then I say, what's up, Al? He says, Frenchie, I'm fixing to bid on a contract for NASA. I says, well, good for NASA. What y'all gonna be doing up there in Cocoa Beach? He says, well, we're fixing to do some diving on some missiles. And I wasn't too familiar with the missile at that time, or Cocoa Beach, or NASA. I said, well, Al, what you talking about? He said, well, sometime they'll shoot a rocket up, and sometime they may have to blow it up. It's going in the wrong direction or something, you know. And he says, as it falls into the sea bottom, they need divers to go pick up all the pieces like an airplane rack, and then we'll take a term, and then they put it together and see what the malfunction was about. I says, okay. I says, well, when's this supposed to take place? He said, well, Frenchie, he said, it'll be a couple months before it's still being negotiated. I'm still negotiating. I says, well, I said, when you're ready to go, I says, no, I wouldn't mind going to help you, you know, work for NASA. But I said, Al, I'm still with Taylor Diving and Salvage Company, you know, and of course I'm ramrodding the Persian Gulf area. I've been there for several years already, and still got a lot of work. I said, but before we do anything, I said, let me know, and then I'll talk to Mark. And if there's nothing going in the Persian Gulf, we got a little slack time there, I'll be glad to go help you. I says, unless you can get somebody else. He says, no, Frenchie. He says, I got you, I got two commercial drivers. That's you and Eddie Marlowe, two hard-hat divers. And he says, I got Jim Thompson and Eddie from Florida, from Fort Lauderdale, I believe. He said, they're both top scuba divers. He says, you guys are not scuba divers, you're commercial divers. No. I already searched around the divers. He says, you're not only, what I'm bidding at, not only you guys are top divers, you're top of your class and you're professional, but you guys know how to get along with people, your attitude and everything. That's going to mean a lot, because we be working for NASA with the government. We've been working with some very important engineers, and possibly we'll be working with the astronaut direct. For about 2 months I didn't hear anything. So finally I get a letter to the mail from NASA. They had my name on it, only Tillman J. Collins. We would like to have some more information on you, And later on, we would like you to come to Cocoa Beach. And I'm reading all this, So I call Al up. I said, Al, I just got a letter from NASA. I says, did you negotiate the contract? He says, yes. He says, I tried to get a hold of you, but he said, I was going to let you know. I just got a letter. He says, yeah, you got one, Eddie Marlowe got one, Jim Thompson got one, and the other Eddie got one. I said, what do we do? I mean, when we starting all this? He said, well, they're going to have to interrogate you. Okay, no problem, and we'll make an appointment. It's going to be one-to-one base. So we'll take you to the office, FBI office in New Orleans. We already make an appointment for y'all. Y'all can go talk to these people, and you got to fill out a lot of paper. I said, then I decided, well, whoa, this ain't. I'm not used. I already used this dive and leave all this political to somebody else. I said, well, I'll give it a chance. And I'd already told the wife. I said, well, they're trying to get us to Florida, move to Florida. She said, oh, I love Florida. Girls will love it too. So finally made the appointment at FBI, sat down there for 2 solid hours, wanted to know if I belonged to any Communist Party or my grandfather or my father. I said, no. We're true American citizens. I says, I was a Boy Scout. I'm born in Bayous in Louisiana. I was a Boy Scout, and I was a Boy Scout master. I was in a Sea Scout, and I was in the Navy, and now I'm doing commercial diving. My family's all right. My wife's all right. She doesn't belong to any party or her family, and her cousin, and this went on. He said, okay, so he gives me the application, so I go back home and fill out the whole thing. What my education was, what my background was, what I think of other country. It went on and on and on. So finally, he give me a brown envelope, put it in, the address is already made, mail it here to New Orleans, and then we'll ship it back to Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral. So finally, I want to call up. He says, okay, we're flying to Cocoa Beach. Got your plane, round trip. We're going to be there 2 days. Got a hotel made and everything. We stay at a Satellite Beach Hotel. There, no problem. So took off, packed my bag, suitcase, went up there. Some guys from Patrick Air Force Base, with my Melbourne, I believe it's Patrick, picked us up, put us in the waiting room, waited there about 30 or 40 minutes, brought us some coffee and everything, and took us all in, all 4 of us. Because we've been approved. The guy says, welcome to NASA, and we already got your information on you guys, and your record looks good. And you divers are going to enjoy working with the astronauts. I said, that's the second time I heard astronaut. I heard possible, we're going to be working with the astronauts. Yeah. And the guy said, you're going to be doing missile recovery work. I says, okay. You got a diving locker, y'all got a diving locker, it is stacked. It's got everything y'all want for diving. And we also got scuba diving equipment, and we also got some commercial diving. Not the hard hat. At that time we had what they call a Swindell helmet. It was just like a hard hat, except it was made out of fiberglass. It was a reconverted jet pilot's helmet. So finally, after we got our diving lock in order, we're familiar with the equipment. All we do is wait for a missile to blow up. So they called us up one morning, we got to work, they said, put your top secret badge on and put your other one on. And they picked us up from the Cape Canaveral dock, port, and brought us inside the deal. And we went to another building, and if you smoke or anything on your keys, everything, put that in the box. And they gave us another badge. Now we got 3 badges. I got my Cape Canaveral badge, I got my top secret badge, and I got this badge. They put us in the elevator. We went about 2 stories underground, which we didn't even know existed. We never been in that building, right? And it was what they call the Blue Scott missile. It hasn't been fly, as they say, it hadn't flew yet. And it says, can't take no note, definitely no pencil and paper, all in the mind. They had a couple of scientists down there and some engineer. They took us from one end of that place to the other. In case this malfunction, this is what we're looking for. This is the most important. He said, we can't go into detail, but it's just like a black box on an airplane. They're going to have a lot of information in this, but that's all. He says, this is what we look first. The rest of the records we can pick later on, but this component. Of course, we need every electronic component y'all can get a hold of, but this particular piece, we need it. So finally, they got ready to shoot the monkey. So we go up there with the boat. We'd have skiff, the 14-foot aluminum skiff, so we can get right quick to it, and wait for the shot. They said it's going to be a beautiful shot, right? So we offshore, off Pat 14. Offshore, we're waiting and everything. Finally, they had about an hour delay, and they says, "Oh, something's going wrong." So we just stand there, standing by. Finally, of course, we had communication directly with the NASA. They said, "Okay, it'll be left off in about 20-some minutes." Okay. Finally, they come down. We heard the countdown, and that thing took off. Well, it got about maybe a half a mile up. They had to destroy it, right? So my God, as soon as the pieces kept rimming down, and it wasn't that much of a big missile, and that's before John Glenn ever went up there. It wasn't that big of a missile. The captain was small enough for a monkey to sit in there. So finally, the thing went down, and we kept looking with the skiff. It was a little choppy, not that bad, but it was still a little choppy. But what happened? They had put some green dye, because on impact the green dye would show. But what they didn't know, close to the beach on the water's a little greenish. And I told them later on, from next time they have something like that, put some orange dye. You can spot orange dye from they come in with the helicopters and everything. Down below, I said, well, we can't see green, but orange, we'll be able to spot them. If they got a little wave or something, green, we're not going to see it. Well, we finally found the capsule. It was damaged, but not broken in pieces. But what we didn't know, they had a double shell on it. Like a double bottom on a ship or a boat. But what happened, I tried to get the monkey out, but he had suffocated. Yeah. But what happened, they had given us a key to open up. There was only 4 boats holding that monkey inside that cage, to get him in and out. Well, somehow the key didn't fit, or it was stripped or something. We had the right key, they had the right boat, but I guess when it hit on impact, something went wrong with the hatch door, and we couldn't open it in time. And time we got there, even though oxygen cylinders that he was breathing was all screwed up, and of course he had a bunch of wires tied up to him and everything. And he weighed about maybe 10, 12 pounds at the most. He was a chimpanzee. So finally I got him out, but I didn't want to pull on the there, and most of we carry a knife. I didn't have a knife, so I had to kind of crawl and in the capsule and kind of disconnect with a can of pull on it, get him out. Then we brought him out and we told him as soon as they get there was a helicopter flying around, and then but they didn't have any boat. But as soon as they heard we had the monkey, they sent a boat and security people out there with the engineers, and we brought him on top of the diving boat, just laid him right there on the, but he wasn't moving. So they come picked him up and then took him to NASA. Of course, later on we found out that the monkey had suffocated on impact. The oxygen tank had disengaged or something. You know. We used to go down the range, because when that missile leaves canal where she goes, the curvature to her, she goes down range, and they had tracking station all the way down there. We would drop a buoy right here, we'd drop a buoy right there, a mile square. Then we got all our boats and our skiff and our dragging equipment, everything. We go there about 2-3 days ahead of time, and then when the missile, you could see it coming from the horizon. In other words, if it was going to malfunction, that tracking station would say it would fall in this vicinity within a mile area. Then we would be searching in that particular area instead of 5 miles down out of nowhere. So that was quite an experience, you know. Later on, they call us, pick us up, Patrick Air Force Base. So all four of us, I say, well, what's up now? They say, okay, boys, tomorrow morning is going to take a couple of days, or we're going to try to do it in one day. It all depends on weather factor. They say, well, you'll be working with the astronaut, and you will meet them. They'll be at the Cape, at the dock there, getting on the boat. Okay, so that'll be John Glenn, Carpenter, Wally Gerard, and all the rest. I'll be Buzz Iron, or all that. I can't think of the rest of them. And all right, so finally the next morning, here's what we're going to do. They got a dummy capsule. It's a replica of the regular capsule that John Glenn went in. The only thing they got in there is they got an oxygen for emergency and communication. That's it. It's just an empty shell, but it's a replica, you know. So they say, we'll put the astronaut one at a time in there. The helicopter will pick it up, right? We'll pick it up, and then they'll drop it in the water. What our job was to do is go with the skiff. We had two skiffs. And what they call a flotation donut, it was made into half and half. Our job was, as soon as that capsule hits the water, we're supposed to go there, 2 divers, one on each end. I'd take half of the flotation and hook the other end around, and then we open up the hatch, and then we take whoever, John Glenn or Wallace Sherrod or Carpenter in there, then we take them back to the boat and then bring another astronaut and give them the feeling of what to be dropping in the water. But then it was also timing how long it takes us to put that donut. As soon as we get them hooked, we pull they had a string, you pull the CO2 bottle, it would inflate it, and that would stabilize the capsule.